What is up YouTube, and welcome to this American Horror Stories finale breakdown. I say it every week, but this show and this specific episode has been particularly divisive. I feel like it did redeem itself after the opening two-parter, and the creativity, meta-commentary and craziness was off the charts in this episode, referencing Dead by Daylight, passionate fans, and even the writers' real thoughts on the show. We open with a young horror and AHS obsessed couple who have taken the pilgrimage to the murder house. They met at a convention and call themselves Connie and Dylan, references to the original series couple there, and are confused as to why Sarah Paulson would rag on Roanoke, which he actually did a few months ago. They are self-confessed super fans. They've been to every single scary location from AHS so far, but none have been scary or haunted until they reach Murder House. They have an experience at an Airbnb, and I think that was thrown in there because the original couple from the two-parter wanted to make this actually an Airbnb experience. They soon find out that it really is an actual murder house, and they become haunted and find some girls who weren't in the first season who were killed and were trapped there for 10 years, the first sign that things aren't right. Confronted by Addie, who Connie said died outside the house, and they're converged on to be killed when we see Twisty and others, and it becomes evident that, well, this is a game. It's a game that a mother is trying to make to connect with her son. He is a super fan, and I loved how this is a Dead by Daylight knockoff, which is absolutely hilarious. I really love that, well, we're surprised, and I'm surprised that AHS hasn't really had a Dead by Daylight connection at all yet, and it shows how self-aware the writers are, but this is nothing yet for what's to come. Rory explains that his mother doesn't get the show at all. He is us complaining about the writing, saying they need a reason to be trapped in the house as they didn't overcome the trauma or greed in their mortal life, which is why they become trapped and attracted to the house. The mother has literally bet her own house on the game, trying to form a bond with her son, and he sees it as a cheap knockoff, and the writers not understanding what makes the show great. It's very, very good meta commentary there. A clear reference to the reception of the show, considering this episode was actually filmed 3 weeks ago. The game is glitchy and is awful in a true fan's eyes. There's a weird vibe in a house which never quite gets resolved or explained, except we saw the Red Bull from Murder House appearing at the end. The mother is divorced and it's seemingly her fault as she kept biting at the husband, and she lies to her son about going to a convention to work on the game and actually goes to get an in at the murder house. Now in my eyes, I think she did actually go to this convention and also binge Murder House again once more to get inspiration on how to actually finish the game. And she was also finding herself as her going to the house and getting trapped inside it. That's her immersing herself into the world. We see Dylan appear again and he warns her off Ruby and Scarlet, but it's too late as she dies. In a conversation with her son, she finally really understands the house. In this weird middle part, we have her return to Rory on Halloween, and he hates her and wants her to move on. Rory wants to burn down the house so that everyone can move on. He's sort of like the viewer and maybe partly Ryan Murphy. He's sick of returning to that damn house so many times. The writers didn't get the murder house in the opener of this season correct, but they fixed it here. Now he returns to burn down the whole damn thing, much to the anger of Scarlet and Ruby, who, oh my god, I cannot stand. I was gutted when I learned that we were returning to the murder house because they are the worst thing about this entire season. However, he manages to burn it all down and wipes out the murder house. And I love the old guy was like, yeah, it's just a house. I'm sick of people taking selfies. It reminded me of the old lady who lives at the Breaking Bad house who just sits outside all day shouting at people. Now the ghosts move on and we see Scarlet, who is rich and heads to a condo development. Actually, like, what is a condo? In the UK we call them flats, and what's the difference between an apartment compared to a condo? But we see the same realtor who was working on the murder house. He's back and selling the last unit to Scarlet, who in the last 3 years has become become an assassin. This whole character is pure cringe, but we learn that there's no hauntings. There hasn't been for a while. That's why he's decided to not tell people about the murders on that land. Now, we learn that Ruby has stayed there. She was the only ghost who decided to stay there, with Scarlett's parents moving on. And they're finally together. Cut. It was all a dream. No, it was all a game. It's Murder House 2.0. The mother has grown and finally got to grips of AHS. So, wait, does American Horror Story exist in this world? But so do the real stories. Personally, I think this is a meta world that we're seeing when this game is being shown. It's the world of American Horror Story telling the story of real life places in this world. So we have World A, where all the craziness happens, and then a story about World A is told in World A. We're not in our world, but a world where this stuff exists, and American Horror Story is an adaptation of each of these. However, one spirit has survived into the real world, and that was Beauregard Langdon with her red ball. We don't exactly see her, we just see the red ball. It's hinting that this is not over, and this could be a new haunted house, which I think is a mistake personally, as ending the episode, while I enjoyed it, was a bit ambiguous, maybe a bit too much for my liking. I really did actually enjoy it, and I thought that this was a good bookend for Murder House, but the season was, as I've seen on Reddit and Twitter, almost hated for being tilted towards a younger audience. But let's not actually forget that many of you probably were teenagers when the show first started. And in the age of streaming, teenagers today have more access to TV shows ever. It is mind-blowing. And they probably started watching it on Netflix and other ways. And for a show to stay relevant, it has to evolve over time. For me, the best episode was Baal, and I thought the game dev's house is a lot like that house in that episode. So I did think that, hold on, this could be the new focal point for spooks. But overall, I thought it was decent. I really loved last week's Cody Fern episode, and it did make me laugh that everyone was like, your accent's terrible, mate. Just like my accent, but his was real. He's actually from Australia. You're all insane. But we do have American Horror Story double feature starting next week, which I am super excited for as well. And I believe in October, or I can't remember exactly when it starts, we have Midnight Mass as well, a new show from the people who made the Haunting series. So we've got a lot of spooks, and we're heading into spooky season. So do stick around, hit that subscribe if you want to stay with us. I'll be covering it all. Drop a like as well if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.